Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be talking about a little bit of video game news that some of you may have missed last week. Late last week, I think it was on Thursday, Slytherin had their, I don't know if it's annual or biannual. It used to be like a once a year big event that they would throw where they would have sort of a streamed conference, kind of like their own convention, and where they announce different new games, they release updates on games they're working on, and it's just sort of a showcase of all the stuff that Slytherin is working on. I feel like they did one last fall, so maybe they're doing these more than once a year now, but this was their spring Home of Wargamers event. They're called Home of Wargamers. It's usually like in a castle in Italy, because I think Marco, their marketing guy, is in Italy, and their marketing department, I believe, is in Italy. The company's based in England. But it was at like a castle in Italy, and they talked about a bunch of different games. And we're going to be talking about one of them. They announced two new games in this convention. One of them is a chariot racing game, which I'll put a link in the description to. It's kind of interesting. It feels a little bit like, based on what limited info they shared, reminds me of like MotoGP, which is kind of like a Formula One or whatever racing management game, where you're like running a team. Except that this occurs in the Roman times and you're leading like a chariot, I think. That was kind of the vibe I got from it anyway. I don't know. I haven't really played MotoGP, so it's not really something I can weigh too much in on. But the game that we're going to be talking about, as you've probably already guessed from the screenshots here, the game we're going to be talking about is a different game. It's called Field of Glory Kingdoms. And this is interesting because we've done a little bit of Field of Glory 2 Medieval on the channel. And Field of Glory Kingdoms is a new game that's being developed by AGEOD. It is a turn-based WeGo game, and it is a game that allows you to integrate with Field of Glory 2 Medieval. And I think that's one of the big selling points of the game. At least that's one of the things that makes it unique. So Field of Glory Kingdoms is a turn-based medieval, I guess, war game or strategy game. It starts in the year 1054, so right after the Great Schism. So the East and the Western churches are divided. It does include two side scenarios, but the main scenario, the main whole game scenario, starts in 1054. You are the ruler of any of one of 375 different factions, which is pretty, I mean, that's a huge number of like countries or kingdoms that you can play as. Makes sense because in the medieval times, a lot of these places are small. They're not like huge kingdoms or anything like that. You go to like Germany and there's over 300 like duchies or counties or things like that just in Germany alone. But it's a game that takes place in the medieval times. You have over 375 factions. It takes place primarily, it looks like, in North Africa and Europe based on the maps, but obviously the Middle East is in there as well. It goes as far east into parts of Russia, whatnot. There are a wide number of units that you can create. I think it's like 600 different building types, 325 different unit types, and there's 14 different religions or heresies. Now, those are just some counting facts. But essentially, it's a medieval strategy game. I guess you could say, like, I don't know if it's comparable to Crusader Kings or if it's more in line with something like Total War in terms of its depth. It's very much the spiritual sequel to Field of Glory Empires, which was this exact same concept of game, except that game took place in Roman times and interfaced with Field of Glory 2, which was kind of an early Roman rise, you know, Rome and Carthage, Punic Wars, sort of that time period. I didn't play Empires all that much because, frankly, the Roman Republic just doesn't really do it for me. I find the late Empire fascinating, but like the Republican period, for whatever reason, just feels overplayed in a lot of war games, so I just don't find it terribly interesting. But Field of Glory Kingdoms is the same concept, right? So they have this top-level strategy game. It's a game that allows you to build your kingdom, build buildings, manage religions, manage different elements of your kingdom. Your goal is to obviously expand your kingdom, expand your influence, and, you know, I don't know if you're supposed to conquer the world, but build an empire. And they have some pretty interesting mechanics around things like decadence, which is sort of a concept of as your kingdom expands, it will become more vulnerable to internal decay. So as your kingdom in Field of Glory empires or kingdoms expands, there's different pressures weighing on you. Maybe it's multiple different, ethnic groups, religions, or other things like that exist in your kingdom that are kind of pulling it apart. Maybe it's over expansion or other things like that. The kind of things that bring empires down historically. That was the concept with the game. Now, Field of Glory Kingdoms is enhancing that sort of functionality. They're also adding some other elements to it that feel a little bit like Crusader Kings. So, like, as your kingdom expands, you can only directly rule so much of your kingdom. And so as your kingdom expands, you do have to, assign portions of it, I guess. This is what they said in the interview. Assign portions of it to your vassals, who will sort of manage or run that part of the kingdom for you. But obviously, the vassals have loyalty ratings and things like that. So they may be in it for their own gain, their own, power and influence. They probably are. And so if you get a bad vassal, you can have wars where you're fighting against yourself, or, maybe they align with another kingdom or empire or other things like that. So, in that sense, there's sort of a power struggle that feels a little bit like Crusader Kings. It's also a game that includes, characters. So you have to, manage your lineage, your family. You can assign uncles to rule parts of your vassals or parts of your kingdom. You have to set up your heir and whatnot for success. You have to manage your family in succession and whatnot. And so that's, I don't know how far into the character side of things they go. If it really goes as far as something like Crusader Kings, I doubt it. But it certainly is going to manage that element of sort of dynasty management into the game. Additionally, you also have warfare in this game, obviously, and so in Field of Glory Kingdoms, just by itself, it's going to be more like Crusader Kings, where like you build up your armies, you move around, you fight. As two armies collide, a battle occurs, but you don't directly fight that battle tactically. So in that sense, it's very much like sort of the Paradox games, where you build your army and then you watch it fight, but you don't actually like jump into the battle. You don't see the battle in 3D, anything like that. But one of the things, and I think this is a big selling point of empires and also with kingdoms, is with kingdoms, if you are fighting a battle, you can actually export that battle to another game, Field of Glory 2 Medieval, which is a tactical war game that takes place, you fight battles in turns in a tactical battlefield, and you can export your battle from Field of Glory Kingdoms into Field of Glory 2 Medieval, fight the battle there, resolve it, export it back to Kingdoms, and then the results translate into your Kingdoms game. I find that particularly interesting because that feels like it's a lot of work for them to do that. These are two completely separate games, but the fact that they did that with Empires and they're doing it again with Kingdoms, to me that says like that was a feature that people were using. The Field of Glory 2 battles can be pretty lengthy in terms of time. Like, that's a tactical battle game. It does have campaigns, but not really. Like, they're just linked battles. There's no moving across a map. There's no story or anything behind it. It's mostly like about refighting historical medieval battles, or fighting sort of sandbox battles, or fighting other people online. And so the fact that they're working to integrate that again, that feels like a lot of work. It must have been something that was well received with Empires. I would imagine it would make for a fairly slow game in Field of Glory Kingdoms, because it's not like the core of the game. But I'm curious to see how that plays out, because again, I'm not super interested in the Roman Republic period. The medieval period is more interesting to me, and so I could definitely see myself playing this and exporting battles into Field of Glory 2 Medieval, which I did enjoy and played a fair bit, and maybe having a game like that. So that could be I think a more interesting tactical battle element to this game. I mentioned multiplayer for Field of Glory 2. Field of Glory Kingdoms supports multiplayer as well. I already said it's WeGo, so you sort of issue your orders simultaneously, or you issue your orders and then they're resolved simultaneously. Multiplayer supports up to 16 players in a multiplayer game, so quite a few for a turn-based game like that. That feels like a lot for a turn-based game. They say there's regions and populations. Administer your population from the lowest peasant to the prestigious, powerful, and troublesome. I'm not sure what that exactly means. The social ladder is difficult to climb. Your ability in keeping your social classes under control is paramount to success. Obviously, religion plays a big role in this game. Different religions, if you like border another religion, then I guess it can influence tensions and it can kind of cause, the likelihood of conflict to occur. I saw a pop-up in one of the screenshots that mentioned like a border dispute or things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they push the narrative or how action is driven. I'm really curious to see how this plays out. Dynasties and characters, right? Prepare your succession by assuring an heir with your spouse or with any other person of your choice. Having an heir is by no means a guarantee of a peaceful transition, so you can obviously have civil wars and things like that. There's a authority and a disorder element to this game. So authority apparently is a new concept. Keep your population and vassals under control. Promulgate edicts to construct buildings and declare wars on your enemies. So that's probably like fabricating a casus belli or something like that. But then the authority was the other thing that they mentioned, like as your empire or kingdom expands, your authority within that kingdom is limited based on your size. So like maybe you gain this huge conquest with one ruler, you pass it on to their kid, and it kind of becomes kind of like the Holy Roman Empire at one point when it was first conquered, at least the first elements of it by Charlemagne. It was a pretty cohesive body, if you will. And then it was like fractured into 3 groups to his successors. And then it was fractured more. And then France was not really part of it and it kind of coalesced around the German states. But like the ability of any one emperor to directly influence the empire depended on their own capabilities. So I imagine like that's going to be a part of this game, is like how influential your character or your reign is and what limits are placed around that. So I think that'll be pretty interesting to see. And the only other thing I think really that's worth calling out at this point, because we really don't know much. They only shared 5 or 6 screenshots. They shared a trailer, but it was like all just medieval like art style stuff. It wasn't anything gameplay related. So they said that they're planning for a beta in early autumn of 2022. Probably means we're not looking at a commercial launch, I would guess, until 2023. But at least in early autumn, they're planning on opening the game up as a beta for people to sign up and help test and things like that. And then I would assume maybe by spring of 2023, the game will come out. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this as this game progresses to see, how things shake out. And as we learn more, I'll definitely be covering it. I think it's an interesting looking game. I really enjoyed Crusader Kings. I enjoyed Medieval Total War back in the day. This kind of feels like a game that kind of spans both sort of edges of that type of a game to somewhere in the middle. Again, Field of Glory Empires, which is its predecessor, was really well received, got pretty good reviews. I feel like it flew under the radar a little bit, but I do think the fact that Imperator for Paradox didn't do very well probably helped it out a little bit in comparison, which is like another similar style or time frame of game. So it'll be interesting. When they announced Field of Glory 2 Medieval, and they brought the Field of Glory 2 game into the medieval era, I figured like maybe they'll do like they did with Empires, they'll do a strategy game that's more like a grand strategy game that interfaces with it, and lo and behold, they are doing that. So I think that's a positive thing to see. Obviously, Empires did well enough for them to try another game at this about this. So let's see how this plays out. I guess the only other thing worth mentioning that they did mention several times in the interview was that the game apparently is like trying to infuse medieval art and sort of those wall paintings that you kind of see in the screenshots or in the trailer here directly into the game, into its UI design, into its styles, into the way the map looks. And so like they're trying to really make it feel kind of like those medieval murals of like paintings of knights and peasants and stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of cool. They did say they're working on making the maps look better and things like that. So, I guess we'll see. I don't see enough here to really have like a strong opinion one way or the other, but it's a game I'll definitely have my eyes on. Anyway, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Sorry, I'm a little congested. I've got a little bit of a cold going on right now. That's why I haven't made any, or I haven't streamed in about a week and haven't made a ton of videos lately. But I do have a bunch of stuff that is in the hopper, so we will be seeing more stuff soon. With that being said, this is the Historical Gamer, as always, saying thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments down below, and as always, until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying... I'm repeating myself like 5 times. Whatever. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, I'm out. Bye-bye.